Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Isaiah chapter 24, verse 4. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. And when we go to that word languish in the Strongs, it's H535, amal.
Strong's H535. Amal.
And then when we go into the outline of biblical usage, it reads to be weak, to droop, to be exhausted, to be weak, to be or grow feeble. So point blank period, as it says in Isaiah chapter 24, verse 4, the earth is languishing. It's become weaker through the successive ages. And verse 5 is going to tell you exactly why. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. This world isn't run after the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called God, and Yahweh Shai being the name of the Son of the Most High, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus. The earth isn't being run under the laws, statutes, and commandments, hence why the earth is out of course and languishing, getting weak. And as it says in Job chapter 9, verse 24, the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked, and the wicked, as pursuant to Malachi 1, verse 4, the border of wickedness is the biblical Edomite, or these so-called white people, these Americans, British, Europeans, the Russians, South Afrikaners, the little hats over in the Holy Land, etc., etc. And we can clearly see that the Edomites are ruling in the last days before the end of this current age of the rulership of the heathen nations, before the ushering in of the kingdom of heaven under the true children of Israel, known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And just to see that this earth isn't governed by the laws, statutes, and commandments, go read Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and see if the 614 laws, statutes, and commandments in there are being followed. Damn near every one of them, at this point we can say every one of them is being broken by this Edomite. Hence again, why the earth is languishing and everything is out of course. And I opened up the video with these verses to preface an article on CNN.com titled, Japan will soon release Fukushima radioactive water into the ocean. How worried should we be? Hey, just to further show that the earth is languishing under the rulership of these heathens, chiefly of the Edomites. And as it says in Sirach chapter 10, Sirach or Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 10, I'm going to start at verse 1. A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. And what makes you wise is the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding given to you through the scriptures. And if this world was governed under the laws, statutes, and commandments, hey, this world would be well ordered. There would be clean air, clean water, with damn sure no fucking radiation being poured into it, lands getting strip-mined of their resources, animals going extinct, or GMO foods out here, or the alphabet agenda getting pushed, or feminism, democracy, communism, anything out there that's being pushed that's just completely destroyed the people out here. But remember, hey, the laws are being transgressed, the covenants being broken, etc., because the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. Verse 2, as the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers, and what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. And these Edomites are the basest of men, as pursuant to Daniel chapter 4. They do, and as it says in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 16 to 17, you Edomites are the most profane, which profane means outside of the temple, fornicators out there. You do everything clean contrary to the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai in the scriptures. And again, as it said, as the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein. These other heathen nations, seeing you in power right now, think that, oh, how you got into power is the way to get strength. So they're following after you. What are they doing? Leaving off from their ancient customs and following after this westernized mindset, wearing business suits, shaving their faces, using the US dollar as the world reserve currency right now, pushing for having democracies in their country. Feminism has taken root in a lot of these countries, and they're following after a lot of your destructive practices to the environment, because dumping nuclear radiation into the ocean goes back to these Edomite nations. Hey, you had the Industrial Revolution, which so-called modernized your societies, and these other nations like China, India, etc., are following suit, using heavy coal power and all these other practices, and doing what? Doing the same thing you're doing. As we're about to read in that article, Japan dumping nuclear waste into the ocean, and these other nations dumping shit into the ocean, and doing all these other things that you Edomites push, following after your lead, which is what? Further causing the world to languish and grow weak under the inhabitants thereof. But we're living in the last seconds of your rulership before you're taken out of power, and the rightful rulers of this planet are put back into power, the children of Israel, again known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, under the elect of the nation of Israel, beginning with the 144,000, with Yahweh Yahweh Shai over them. And when the nation of Israel is set back up after Yahweh Shai's second coming, the earth is going to be governed under the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Hence, the earth is going to begin, being refreshed. It's going to go back to being like the Garden of Eden, a literal paradise, but this time even better and for eternity. Verse 3, an unwise king destroyed his people. Hey, Edomites dumping your nuclear radiation into the ocean, and these other nations following suit. You Edomites industrializing and destroying the environment, these other nations following suit. You Edomites pushing democracy and feminism, these other nations following suit, seeing their families being broken up, their women becoming whores, their daughters the same, their sons becoming alphabet people, broken homes, the list goes on and on. But through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. Hey, the wise judges being put back into power and governing the earth prudently under the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Let's get one more precept before we get into that article. Shit, we might get two more. This is Psalms chapter 12, verse 8. The wicked walk on every side when the vilest men are exalted. Point blank, period. And the vilest men are still being exalted right now. Even though you Edomites are being taken out of power, a lot of these people still look at you as the standard. Again, wearing business suits, shaving their faces, speaking English, using the US dollar as the world reserve currency, and following after your abominable practices, your abominable ideologies, and your abominable business practices, which destroy the environment. Hence, the wicked are walking on every side. As the judge and the ruler is, so are the people. The rulers are vile, so the people on the planet are vile. And there's going to be a flip side to that in the kingdom. When the righteous are in authority, the people shall rejoice, as it says in Proverbs chapter 29, verse 2. When this earth is governed by the laws, statutes, and commandments under the children of Israel, these people are going to follow suit and live righteously. But now let's get into that article. Japan will soon begin releasing treated radioactive water into the ocean following approval from the United Nations nuclear watchdog for a controversial plan that comes 12 years after the Fukushima nuclear meltdown. The plan to release treated wastewater has been in the works for years, with the environment minister declaring in 2019 there were no other options as space runs out to contain the contaminated material. But hey, these nuclear materials are being used wrongfully under the wicked, because these different radioactive materials that are on the periodic table have a righteous use to them. Everything that's on this earth has a righteous use and way to be handled. But as it says in Sirach 39, all things are good for the good, but for the wicked they are wicked. These Edomites, and then trickling down to these other heathen nations, have taken these natural things of the earth and created what? Nuclear power plants, nuclear bombs out of them, which has led to what? Nuclear radiation, fallout. And as we're seeing what these Japanese are doing in the fallout of the Fukushima nuclear reactor meltdown, planning on releasing so-called treated nuclear water into the oceans, which that is going to have a complete horrific effect on the environment, no matter how much they say, oh, it's treated or it's just trace amounts. Fucking madness. Rafael Grossi, chief of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, arrived in Japan on Tuesday to visit Fukushima and present the UN, or United Nations, which is run mainly by who? These Edomite Western nations, body's safety review to Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. But the UN's approval has done little to reassure rattled residents in neighboring countries and local fishermen who still feel the impact of the 2011 disaster. Some have cast doubt on the IAEA's findings, with China recently arguing that the group's assessment is not proof of the legality and legitimacy of Fukushima's wastewater release. And I'm going to skip around in this article to get to the main points. What are the risks? Radioactive wastewater contains some dangerous elements, but the majority of these can be removed from the water, supposedly, said TEPCO. The real issue is a hydrogen isotope called radioactive tritium, which cannot be taken away. There's currently no technology available to do so, but Japan's government and the IAEA say the contaminated water will be highly diluted and released slowly over the decades. Hey, spoken like a true Edomite. It's just trace elements in there that's going to be released slowly over time. But what? If you drink poison little by little, you're ultimately going to get poisoned. It's like with that Dasani water that has, I believe, arsenic in it. They say, oh, well, we admit that there's arsenic in Dasani water, but if you drink it in just little amounts, you'll be fine. But say you're drinking that, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, that's destroying your body. And in a lot of cases, these effects may not fully show up in you, but they're going to fully show up down the line in the generations. Hence, why you got a lot of these younger generations with a lot of physical and mental health ailments out here. But Japan's government, and we already read that means the concentration of tritium being released would be on par or lower than the amount other countries allow and meet international safety and environmental regulations, they say. TEPCO, Japan's government, and the IAEA also argue that tritium occurs naturally in the environment, from rain to seawater to tap water, and even in the human body. Like I said in Sirach chapter 39, for the good, all things are used lawfully, so to speak, but for the wicked, all things are used wickedly. Everything that comes of the earth is natural and has a right use, but when it's given into the hands of the wicked and exacerbated by those that are following after the wicked walk on every side when the vilest men are exalted. Hey, they're used in the wrong ways, which leads to what? The earth languishing, growing weak. And as it also said, the haughty people do languish, and if you're haughty, you're proud. These Edomites out here are proud, so these other nations have picked up on that proud spirit, that no accountability spirit, that, oh, so-called science can solve everything spirit. So releasing small amounts into the sea should be safe. In the IAEA report, Grossi said discharging treated water into the sea would have a negligible radiological impact on people and the environment. The Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission says tritium itself is too weak to penetrate the skin, but can increase the risk of cancer if consumed in extremely large quantities. Like these other things out there that they say, oh, it's negligible trace amounts, but if you consume them over a time, you're still going to be affected. Just recently, a report came out that said 45% of tap water in the United States of America is polluted with PFASs, or forever chemicals, which cause cancer and a whole host of medical ailments out there. And unless you have a filter, which can only do so much, you're taking a shower and bathing in that water, you're brushing your teeth in that water, and God forbid you still do this, you drink tap water or cook your food in tap water. Meanwhile, the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission acknowledged that an exposure to radiation could pose some health risk, but added that everyone is exposed to small amounts of tritium every day. And we're exposed to a lot of other amounts of radiation as well. Back in the 50s and the 60s, the U.S. did a shit ton of nuclear weapons tests out in the Nevada desert and other isolated places. And that radiation didn't just, dissipate after the bomb detonated. Hey, it went up into the sky, and those effects are still being felt unto this day. Robert H. Richmond, director of the Kewalo Marine Laboratory at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, is among a group of international scientists working with the Pacific Island Forum to assess the wastewater release plan, including visits to Fukushima site and meetings with TEPCO, Japanese authorities, and the IAEA. After reviewing the details of the plan, Richmond called it ill-advised and premature. One concern is that diluting the wastewater might not be enough to reduce its impact on marine life. Pollutants like tritium can pass through various levels of the food chain, including plants, animals, and bacteria, and be bioaccumulated, meaning they will build up in the marine ecosystem, he said. Hey, so what was all that talk about negligible trace amounts that really won't do anything? He added that the world's oceans are already under stress from climate change, ocean acidification, overfishing, and pollution. The last thing it needs is to be treated like a dumping ground, he said, point blank, period. And when you look at any other point in human history, recorded human history, was the Earth ever on the verge of suicide, so to speak, as it is right now? No, because you've got the vilest of men, the wicked, the basest of men, these Edomites in rulership who do everything clean contrary to the laws, statutes, and commandments, and all these issues are being exacerbated by these other heathen nations following suit. This is Psalms chapter 82, verses 4-5. Deliver the poor and the needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked. And the poor and the needy are you Israelites out there who definitely need to be delivered from the hands of the wicked. These Edomites, as well as their cronies, these other heathen nations out there. Read Psalms chapter 83, because look at us. We get poisonous food and water into our communities. They used to put, there's that whole Roe v. Wade thing getting repealed, the Planned Parenthood thing where they advocate for our women to get abortions. Slacky, I use the word. Advocate for our women to delete their children. They push rap and thug and hip-hop culture on us. Call us black, Native American, Mexican, spick, tonto, nigger, everything else under the sun but who we are, the children of Israel. Hey, They abuse the environment, spraying those chemtrails, dumping radiation waste and other waste into the oceans, pushing GMO foods, cell phone and Wi-Fi radiation, feminism. We could be here for hours, for days, going in on the wicked practices of these Edomites. So we definitely need Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai to come and save us from this devil. Verse 5, they know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course, because they've transgressed the laws and broken the everlasting covenants. This world is being run out of course, not after the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, but after the laws, statutes, and commandments of man, especially the wicked man. Hence, the earth is in a complete state of disarray right now. And if this devil, this Edomite, was allowed to rule indefinitely, this planet would become a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland. This is Matthew chapter 24, verse 22. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, the true poor and needy of the nation of Israel, those days shall be shortened. Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is shortening these days for the sakes of the elect. Just last year, a bunch of scientists came out with a report saying that the earth is spinning faster and that the days are getting shortened. Biblical prophecy taking place before our eyes. And again, if the Most High did not set up bounds which this devil could not pass, and he was allowed to rule indefinitely, and the days weren't shortened, we'd be living in a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland, a dead world. The potential risks won't just affect the Asia-Pacific region. One 2012 study found evidence that bluefin tuna had transported radionuclides, radioactive isotopes like the ones in nuclear wastewater, from Fukushima across the Pacific to California. And I remember back in 2012 when this whole thing took place, and as that radioactive water was seeping into the Pacific, to the west, to Hawaii and the west coast of the United States of America, you had U.S. sailors that were stationed in the Pacific getting sick. And in the Pacific Northwest, you had adverse mutations taking place with mountain lions walking around with deformed faces, deformed fish, etc., etc. But hey, that's all people are worried about. A big pair of milk jugs. I'm just being silly. But let's see. Hey, at this point, they ain't even worried about, milk jugs. They're worried about beans and franks with this whole alphabet thing getting pushed. What have other countries said? The plan has met a mixed reaction, with support from some corners and skepticism from others. The U.S. has backed Japan. Hey, of course the U.S. has backed Japan. U.S. has done these practices in the past and not taken accountability for them. With the State Department saying in 2021 that Japan had been transparent about its decision and seems to be following globally accepted nuclear safety standards, set up by what? These Western bodies, the United Nations, stuff like that, which is run by Edomites. How you going to put a thief, a robber, in control of the house, in control of finances, and not expect him to steal and cut corners and fill his own belly? Taiwan's Atomic Energy Council said the amount of tritium being released is estimated to be below the detection limit, and the impact on Taiwan will be minimal. The island is located southwest of Japan, but there's more resistance from Japan's closer neighbors. In March, a prominent Chinese official warned the wastewater could cause unpredictable harm to the marine environment and human health, adding, the Pacific Ocean is not Japan's sewer for discharging its nuclear contaminated water. The Secretary General of the Pacific Islands Forum, an intergovernmental group of Pacific islands, including Australia and New Zealand, also published an op-ed in January voicing grave concerns. More data is needed before any ocean release should be permitted, he wrote. We owe it to our children and grandchildren who would see the main effects of these practices taking place decades before their birth to work toward ensuring that their futures are secured and safe. And this is a beautiful last paragraph in this article. South Korean Prime Minister Han Duck-soo showed support for the plan in June, saying he could drink the wastewater after it had been treated to meet international standards, according to Yonhap, a statement ridiculed by the country's opposition leader. And I'd like to see that. I'd like to be there and see them actually take treated radioactive water for him to drink and not play a bait and switch and give him a cup of clean water. Just madness. And back in the 60s, during the Vietnam War, you had something called Agent Orange, which was a chemical that was used to defoliate the jungles of Vietnam, which has led to a deformed Vietnamese children over in Vietnam and U.S. veterans of that war having health ailments like cancer and other debilitating diseases, decades after the war ended. Well, back during the 60s, I believe it was, who was it? It's right on the tip of my tongue. Hold on a second. Man, it's right on the tip of my tongue. They make a lot of these, I can't remember who they were, but just look up who made Agent Orange. The spokesman for that company, because you had people complaining about the use of Agent Orange in Vietnam, saying, oh, this could lead to adverse effects. They had one of the heads of that company go on the live news and say, hey, there's nothing wrong with Agent Orange. It's completely safe. I'd even drink a cup of it, like this South Korean prime minister said. But what did they do? The reporters of that interview just happened to have a cup of Agent Orange for him to drink, and he wouldn't drink it. So what should that tell you? Monsanto, that was it. Monsanto were the producers of Agent Orange. I'm pretty sure it was Monsanto or DuPont. It's definitely one of them two, but regardless, that's it with this article. But as we can see, these heathens aren't meant to rule. They weren't given the laws, statutes, and commandments, so of course they're not going to govern the earth under the laws, statutes, and commandments. And damn sure the wicked, the basest of men, Esau Edom, the most profane fornicator out there, isn't going to follow the planet after the laws, statutes, and commandments. But thankfully, the bounds have been set up which he cannot pass, and him and these other heathens who are his cronies are going to be taken out of power, and a wise judge, a prudent ruler who's going to well order the government of the world is going to be set into place, and this planet is going to be ruled under the laws, statutes, and commandments, and there will finally be peace on earth. I'm going to close it out in Psalms chapter 96, verses 10 to 12. Say among the heathen that Yahweh reigneth, which is exactly what the men of the Lord, the prophets of the Most High, chiefly through GMS or Great Millstone, as well as the brothers that come in the spirit of GMS are doing by going out onto the highways and byways preaching this word, as well as putting up video epistles like this, exposing who the wicked is according to the scriptures, how you heathens aren't supposed to be in rulership, and that this age of the Gentiles, the heathen Gentiles, is quickly coming to its end, and that age of the righteous ruling, the children of Israel, under Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, is coming, that Yahweh reigneth. The world also shall be established under the laws, statutes, and commandments, that it shall not be moved. The world is going to walk in light and not be out of course. The earth is going to no longer languish, but flourish. He shall judge the people righteously through the laws, statutes, and commandments. Let the heavens rejoice. And in the scriptures, you've got 3 heavens. The regular heaven, which is the sky, the second heaven, which is space, and the third heaven, which is the spirit world where the Most High dwells. And all 3 heavens are going to rejoice when the righteous are in authority. The regular sky isn't going to have chemtrails, Low orbit space is not going to have space junk, and righteousness is going to be ruling on the earth. So Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai in the spirit world is going to be rejoicing. And let the earth be glad. Let the sea roar and the fullness thereof, because radioactive wastewater isn't going to be poured in it anymore, and the marine life is no longer going to be beaching itself because it can't handle that radioactive wastewater as well as these other pollutants that are constantly poured into the ocean. Also, these plastics out here, the look up the horrific effects of microplastics, not just on those in the sea, but on land and in the air as well. And let the earth be glad, let the field be joyful, and all that is therein. Then shall all the trees of the wood rejoice. Animals are no longer going to get hunted to extinction. They're no longer going to consume microplastics, and their lands are not going to be strip mined, made desolate for resources or to build a mall or an apartment complex. So that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites, the wicked, the vilest, the basest nation on the face of the earth. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.